Hello and welcome to K News. This is Hardik Trivedi. Let's have a look what is happening in India and in the world. The officer of Lebanon's president said Friday that binding consultations with members of parliament to designate a new prime minister will begin early next week. Monday's consultations will coincide with a visit by French President Emmanuel Macron to Lebanon, a former French protectorate. He will offer French support after the devastating August 4 port explosion, but also ensure that millions in international aid go to those who need it. Prime Minister Hassan Diab's government resigned on August 10, 6 days after nearly 3,000 tons of ammonium nitrate exploded at Beirut's port, where they had been stored for 6 years. The blast, most destructive single incident in Lebanon's history, killed more than 180 people and left nearly 3,000 people homeless. Lebanon is also mired in its worst economic and financial crisis in decades, and Western nations have said they will not help the tiny country before serious reforms are carried out because corruption and mismanagement are widespread. Torrential rains and flash floods have claimed 39 lives in several areas of Pakistan, with its financial hub Karachi pounded by heavy showers that submerged roads and underpasses, paralyzed business activities, and brought normal life to a complete halt. At least 16 people, including a woman and 2 children, were killed and 8 others injured due to flash floods caused by torrential rains in northwest Pakistan's Khyber Pakhtunkhwa district, a disaster management official said on Friday. 8 people died in Upper Kushistan district, 6 in Swat, and 2 in Shangla district due to the floods on Thursday night. An official of the Provincial Disaster Management Authority said, adding that 40 houses were damaged in these areas. The floodwater inundated houses in Shagram and Tirat area of Swat district, from where 6 deaths and injuries to 8 people were reported. Far-right activists burned a Quran in the southern Swedish city of Malmo, sparking riots and unrest after more than 300 people gathered to protest, police said Saturday. Rioters set fire and threw objects at police and rescue services Friday night, slighting injuries several police officers and leading to the detention of about 15 people. The violence followed the burning Friday afternoon of a Quran near a predominantly migrant neighborhood that was carried out by far-right activists and filmed and posted online. Later, 3 people were arrested on suspicion of inciting hatred against an ethnic group after kicking the Muslim holy book. The President of the United Arab Emirates has issued a decree cancelling a new law on boycotting Israel and allowing trade and financial agreements between the two countries. The UAE official news agency WAM reported on Saturday. The decree from UAE President Khalifa bin Zayed Al Nahyan aims at supporting bilateral cooperation in order to arrive the bilateral relations, the agency said. The announcement comes as Al Airlines plans to operate Israel's first direct flight between Tel Aviv and the UAE's capital Abu Dhabi, carrying an Israeli delegation and top aides to US President Donald Trump, who brokered an August 13 accord to normalize Israel-UAE ties. Trump's senior advisor Jared Kushner will be among the US officials on the flight, departing on August 31 at 10 a.m. a US official said. The Israel-UAE deal awaits negotiations on details such as opening embassies, trade and travel links before it is officially signed. There are no official air links between Israel and the UAE, and it was unclear whether Al will be able to fly over Saudi Arabia, which has no official ties with Israel, to cut down on flight time. In May, an Etihad Airways plane flew from the UAE to Tel Aviv to deliver supplies to the Palestinians to use for the novel coronavirus epidemic, marking the first known flight by a UAE carrier to Israel. Wuhan, ground zero for the COVID-19 pandemic and the Chinese city hardest hit by the coronavirus, will reopen its schools and kindergartens on Tuesday, local authorities said. As many as 2,800 educational institutions across the city are set to open their doors to almost 1.4 million students when the autumn semester gets underway, the local government announced on Friday. Wuhan University reopened on Monday. The city said it has drawn up emergency plans to switch back to online teaching should risk levels change. It advised students to wear masks to and from school and avoid public transportation if possible. Schools have been ordered to stock up on disease control equipment and to carry out drills and training sessions to help prepare for new outbreaks. They must also restrict unnecessary mass gatherings and submit daily reports to health authorities. Foreign students and teachers who have not received notice from their school will not be allowed to return. The central Chinese city where the COVID-19 epidemic is believed to have originated was locked down for more than 2 months from late January. The city's death count of 3,869 accounts for more than 80% of China's total. Wuhan has been steadily returning to normal since April, when the lockdown was lifted, and it has not reported any new local transmissions of the coronavirus since May 18. The Border Security Force has detected a tunnel just beneath the India-Pakistan international border fence in Jammu, officials said on Saturday. The force has launched a major search operation in the area to look for the other such hidden structures that aid infiltration, even as it analyzes the spotted structure that could have been used for aiding infiltration of terrorists and smuggling of narcotics and arms, they said. PSF Director General Rakesh Asthana has directed his frontier commanders to ensure that the anti-infiltration grid is intact and there are no gaps along this front, they added. The tunnel, about 50 meters from the border fence on the Indian side, was located by a BSF patrol on Thursday in the Samba sector of Jammu. The force later examined the tunnel and found plastic sandbags on its mouth that had Pakistani markings on them, officials told. The tunnel, as per sources, has a depth of about 25 feet at the opening and has been located near the Wheelback border post of the BSF. The force has launched a mega search operation along the IB in this area to detect any other such clandestine structure. The nearest Pakistani border post, Gulzar, is about 700 meters from the tunnel, they said. The force has been conducting a mega anti-tunnel drive in the IB areas of Jammu and other places after 5 armed infiltrators were recently killed by it along this front in Punjab. Bengaluru-based edutech firm Unacademy has been roped in as the official partner of the Indian Premier League for 3 seasons, the BCCI announced on Saturday. The 13th IPL is scheduled to be held in UAE from September 19 to November 10. We are pleased to have an academy on board as the official partner of the IPL 2020 to 2022. IPL chairman Brijesh Patel said in a release on Tuesday. IPL is the most watched cricket league in India. The BCCI had earlier announced fantasy gaming platform Dream 11 as this year's IPL title sponsor, replacing Chinese mobile phone company Vivo. Dream 11 had piped educational technology companies Unacademy and Byju's to win the rights for a period of 4 months and 13 days with a bid of rupees 222 crore. The joint teams of security forces on Friday gunned down one of the top commanders of Al-Badr terror outfit, along with 3 other terrorists in a brief encounter in Killura area of South Kashmir's Shopian district. The encounter took place in the area barely hours after the recovery of the dead body of a slain Panch from Konomad area of Srinagar. According to police, Nisar Ahmad Bhatt, an elected Panch, had gone missing since August 19. His dead body was recovered after some locals in Dangam area raised an alarm. The dead body, which with mark of bullet injuries, was buried in an orchard in Dangam area of Shopian. In a tweet, Kashmir Zone Police quoted Inspector General of Police Kashmir Ranger Vijay Kumar, which said terrorist Shakur Parai, Al-Badr district commander, and another terrorist Suhail Bhatt, who abducted and killed Khanmon's Panch, neutralized in today's encounter. IG Vijay Kumar, in a brief statement to a national news agency, said Shopian police was informed that 4 or 5 terrorists were in an orchard in Killura area. When security forces cordoned off the area and started search, they fired on them. 4 terrorists have been killed while 1 has been captured. He is being questioned. In a separate statement, Srinagar-based defense spokesman Colonel Rajesh Kalia said 4 terrorists were killed and 1 terrorist surrendered. 2 AK-47 and 3 pistols recovered. Joint operation in progress. It's time for a short break. We'll join you in a short while.
जी मामा, बस अभी पहुंची हूँ। पता नहीं इतने दिनों में घर का क्या हाल होगा। I don't believe this. तुमने फिर से
जो देखे वो दीवाना। आकाश की सीमा है, उस सीमा से शुरू होता है कैनस्टार। कैनस्टार एक ऐसा ब्रांड जो 20 साल पहले लाया कूलर इंडस्ट्री में एक रेवोल्यूशन। एक ऐसा ब्रांड जिसने 50 लाख से ज्यादा कस्टमर्स की जिंदगी बदल दी। एक ऐसा ब्रांड जिसके 4 मैन्युफैक्चरिंग प्लांट्स और R&D सेंटर लाएंगे कूलिंग की अगली बड़ी टेक्नोलॉजी। तो क्या है कैनस्टार की कोई सीमा? आइए आप और हम तोड़ें हर सीमा। आने वाला वक्त होगा और भी सुनहरा। फ्यूचर इज अस, फ्यूचर इज कैनस्टार।
Welcome back to K News and thank you for watching. Let's continue the streak of news. An unprecedented 5 athletes, cricketer Rohit Sharma, wrestler Vinesh Fogart, para-athlete Mariyappan Thangevelu, women's hockey team captain Rani Rampal, and paddler Manika Batra were on Saturday conferred with the Rajiv Gandhi Khel Ratna Award, the country's highest honor for sports persons. The award winners were connected to President Ramnath Kovind at the Rashtrapati Bhavan from 9 different Sports Authority of India designated locations. Rohit Sharma, who is in the UAE for IPL 2020, could not attend the virtual ceremony as the process only allowed the ones currently in the country to take part. Wrestler Vinesh Fogart, who was supposed to be present in Sonipat, had to be in quarantine after she tested positive for the COVID-19 on the eve of the award ceremony. India's women's hockey team captain Rani Rampal and para-athlete Mariyappan Thangevellu attended the ceremony from Bengaluru, and Commonwealth Games champion paddler Manika Batra joined from Pune. Congress leader P. Chidambaram has taken a swipe at Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman over the act of God comment she made on Thursday while describing the coronavirus pandemic and its impact on GST collection. Sarcastically hailing the Finance Minister as the messenger of God, Mr. Chidambaram demanded she also explain the government's mismanagement of the economy before the COVID crisis began. If the pandemic is an act of God, how do we describe the mismanagement of the economy during 2017-18, 2018-19 and 2019-20 before the pandemic struck India? Will the Finance Minister, as the messenger of God, please answer? Mr. Chidambaram asked in a first of 5 tweets posted Saturday morning. Mr. Chidambaram and other senior Congress leaders have pointed to a steady decline in quarterly GDP growth rates from 7.1% in quarter 2 2018-19 to 3.1% in fourth quarter in 2019-20. In May, Mr. Chidambaram said 3.1% GDP growth in January-March quarter of 2019-20 was a telling commentary on the economic management of the government. His party colleague and former Union Minister Jairam Ramesh said the government was in denial over its handling of the economy, which he called Paramatma Nirbhar. In his tweets today, Mr. Chidambaram also labelled both options given by the Narendra Modi government to counter the shortfall in GST collection as unacceptable. Doctors at a private hospital in Chennai claim to have performed Asia's first lung transplant surgery on a COVID-19 survivor, giving him hope for a better life after the virus severely damaged his lungs. The 48-year-old Gurugram-based businessman, Dr. Said, is doing fine and his new lungs are working well. Dr. K.R. Balakrishnan, the chairman and director of the Heart and Lung Transplant Program at the MGM Healthcare, said the patient has contracted COVID-19 on June 8 and his lungs were badly affected by coronavirus-related fibrosis. In July, he was airlifted to Chennai on ventilatory support and put on ECMO treatment. The entire team put their lives at risk for this surgery, Dr. Balakrishnan said, adding that the patient had recovered from COVID before he was operated on. Both his lungs are working well now and we have removed ECMO support. His clinical condition is stable, MGM Healthcare Coordinator Dr. Suresh Rao said. The lungs for the transplant came from a brain-dead donor at Chennai's Gleneagles Global Hospital. The donor's heart was also given to another recipient at the same hospital. The government is in the final stage of approving the acquisition of 2 Falcon airborne warning and control systems for the Indian Air Force from Israel at a cost of around $1 billion, official sources said. The fresh negotiations with Israeli authorities concerned for procurement of the 2 Falcon AWACS come into midst of India's bitter standoff with China in high-altitude eastern Ladakh. The Indian Air Force already has 3 Falcon AWACS. An addition of 2 more is expected to significantly boost the country's air defense mechanism. The process of approval for 2 more Falcon is nearing final stage, a source told, adding that the proposal is expected to be discussed in the next meeting of Cabinet Committee on Security. The AWACS is mounted on Russian origin Ilyushin 76 transport aircraft, and it is called an eye in the sky because of its superior surveillance capabilities. The Falcon AWACS is capable of tracking enemy aircraft, hostile missiles, movement of troops across the border without crossing territorial limits. Besides the Israeli AWACS, the IAF currently operates 2 indigenously developed airborne early warning and control systems developed by the Defense Research and Development Organization. India has been making concerted efforts to boost its air defense mechanism. INS Virat, the aircraft carrier that served the Indian Navy for 30 years before being decommissioned 3 years ago, is likely to be towed from Mumbai to Alang in Gujarat's Bhavnagar district next month to be dismantled and sold as scrap, an official said. The longest serving warship, inducted into the Indian Navy in 1987, was bought by Shriram Group for 38.58 crore at an auction conducted by the Metal Scrap Trade Corporation Limited last month. It will likely to be towed from the naval dockyard in Mumbai to shipbreaking yard at Alang next month, the company's chairman Mukesh Patel said. INS Virat, the second Centaur class aircraft carrier, was in service for 30 years before being decommissioned in March 2017. There were proposals in the past to preserve it as a maritime museum. In July last year, the central government said in Parliament that the decision to scrap INS Virat was taken in due consultation with the Indian Navy. The aircraft carrier in its earlier avatar had known the Falklands War against Argentina in 1982 for the Royal British Navy. It weighs about 27,800 tons and it served in the British Navy as HMS Hermes from November 1959 to April 1984, and after refurbishment was commissioned into the Indian Navy. In late 80s, the Indian Navy purchased it at a cost of US dollars 65 million, and it was recommissioned on May 12, 1987. Divisive forces are spreading hatred through the India. Freedom of expression is at stake and the country is in a crisis that none of its founding fathers would have imagined, Congress President Sonia Gandhi said on Saturday. Powers that want people to fight are spreading poison of hate in the country. Freedom of expression is under threat. Democracy is being destroyed. They want India's people, our tribals, women and youth to keep their mouths shut. They want to silence the nation, Sonia Gandhi said, speaking via video link at the groundbreaking ceremony for the new Chhattisgarh legislature. None of our ancestors, including Mahatma Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru and B.R. Ambedkar, would have imagined that our country will be facing such a tough situation after 75 years of independence, when our democracy and constitution are under threat, Mr. Gandhi said. Though she did not name Prime Minister Narendra Modi's administration, the Congress chief has raised the ante against the central government with near daily attacks including on subjects like the center not clearing its dues to state governments and holding entrance examinations at a time when India has been reporting the highest number of new coronavirus cases in the world, alleging that the influence of dictatorship on the country's democracy was rising. Mrs. Gandhi said, bad thinking is now dominating. Freedom of expression is in danger and democratic institutions are being ruined. A state-run bank's appointment panel on Friday recommended Dinesh Kumar Khara, one of the State Bank of India's 4 managing directors, as the next chairman of the country's top lender. Unlike his predecessor, SBI's current chairman Rajneesh Kumar did not get an extension to his term, which ends on October 7 after 3 years. The central government will need to approve the bank's board bureau's recommendation before Mr. Khara can take the job. Mr. Khara took up his current role, in which he oversees global markets and subsidiaries of SBI, in August 2016 for a 3-year period, which was extended for another 2 years last year. The bank's board bureau also named another SBI managing director, Challa Srinivasulu Sethi, as the candidate on the reserve list for the chairman's job to take the post if Mr. Khara does not. India typically picks bosses for public sector banks from state-run lenders. This accounts for more than 60% of the country's banking assets, but have lagged private rivals in profitability and have amassed bad loans at a faster pace. Mumbai headquartered SBI reported an 81% surge in profit and better asset quality in the quarter to June, as its bad loan provisions dropped. It provided a steady outlook for the coming quarters. That's all for now. Keep watching K News. This is Hardik Trivedi taking your leave. Be alert, be positive, be safe.